Although, after his death, over 1 million people gathered to pay their final respect. Fela Anikulapo Kuti, whose names were Olufela Olusegun Oludotun Ransome-Kuti, was born into the Ransome-Kuti family, an upper-middle-class family in Abeokuta, colonial Nigeria. His father, Reverend Israel Oludotun Ransome-Kuti, was an Anglican minister, school principal, and the first president of the Nigerian Union of Teachers, while his mother, Mrs. Fumilayo Ransome-Kuti, was an anti-colonial feminist and a labor activist who played a significant role in the fight for Nigerian independence. She is also regarded as the first woman to have driven a car in Nigeria. Between 1935 and 1936, she and her husband, Reverend Ransome-Kuti, arranged to purchase a second-hand car from England and had it shipped to them in Abeokuta. She had 4 children, a daughter named Olukpo Ransome-Kuti, and sons Olukoye, Olufela, and Bekulolari Ransome-Kuti. Fela's parents actively opposed British colonial rule. On one occasion, his father is slashed on the face with a soldier's bayonet for refusing to remove his hat while walking past the British flag flying at the local army barracks. Fela started his education at the Abeokuta Grammar School, and in 1958, he was sent to London by his parents in hopes to study medicine and become a doctor. But instead, he decided to study music at the Trinity College of Music, with the trumpet being his preferred instrument. While there, he formed his first group called Fela Ransome-Kuti and his High Life Rakers. But in 1960, Fela disbands the High Life Rakers and forms Koola Lobitos, which had a lineup of West African and Caribbean musicians. The band played a blend of jazz and high life, and the group would include members like Bayo Martins, who was on the drum, and Wale Bucknor, who played the piano. Fela is a cousin to the writer and laureate Wole Soyinka, a Nobel Prize for Literature winner. They are both descendants of Joshua Ransome-Kuti, who is Fela's parental grandfather and Wole Soyinka's maternal great-grandfather. In 1960, Fela married his first wife, Mrs. Remilekun Taylor, with whom he had 3 children, Yeni, Femi, and Shola. But unfortunately, Shola passed on in 1997, just few months after her father was laid to rest. In 1962, the Koola Lobitos performed in an African Freedom Day concert at the London Royal Festival Hall. The event celebrates the independence movement in Africa, in which Ghana had become the first Black African state to win independence from Britain in 1957, and Nigeria followed in 1960. That same year, Fela graduated from the Trinity College of Music, and in 1963, he relocated back to the newly independent Federation of Nigeria, and he forms the first edition of the Fela Ransome-Kuti and the Quintet. The group, which consisted of 5 people, produced 4 tracks, including To My Mother and Remy, and he also had copies pressed up for promotional use. His discs were played occasionally by the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, but were not released. Impressed by the Quintet recordings, the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation decided to hire Fela as a junior producer with special responsibility for music programming. He then formed the second edition of the Fela Ransome-Kuti Quintet, and this time, he focused more on straight-ahead jazz rather than high life. Years went by, and in 1965, he was fired from the NBC, who were unhappy with his sidelining of high life in favor of jazz, which had a minority taste in Nigeria. A few months later, he had no option but to bow to the commercial pressure and disbands the quintet to form a second edition of Koola Lobitos. This time, he played what he called high life jazz. In mid-1966, the band became a popular presence in the Lagos music scene and began to tour more widely in Nigeria.
Everybody you say Ayakata. Everybody Ayakata. And now you see, you are talking like white man.
On a trip to Ghana, Fela met the Accra-based promoter, Mr. Faisal Ewani, who organized the Koola Lobitos first tour in Ghana. During a press conference, Fela announced that he reformed the Koola Lobitos group and called his new style Afrobeat, a combination of Apala, funk, jazz, highlife, salsa, calypso, and traditional Yoruba music. He then took over the Kakadu Club in Idioro, Lagos, and he renamed it the Afro Spot. Fela and his band recorded a live album at the Afro Spot, which was then released while the band was on a 10-month tour of the US, which began in May. They performed in Washington, Chicago, and San Francisco before ending up broke in Los Angeles. In August, the musician's visa had expired and Fela decided to host the band and under the radar residency at a club called Citadel da 80.
I met a woman, a girl, Sandra Sadore. She was a member of the Black Panther. She gave me many books to read.
While there, he discovered the Black Power movement through Sandra Smith, who is also known as Sandra Isadore. She is a strong supporter of the Black Panther Party. She introduced him to the writings of Malcolm X, Angela Davis, and other revolutionary thinkers. This experience heavily influenced his musical and political views. Soon afterwards, the Immigration and Naturalization Service was tipped off by a promoter that Fela and his band were in the US without work permits. The band performed a quick recording session in Los Angeles that would later be released as the 69 Los Angeles session. After Fela and his band returned to Nigeria, the group was renamed the Africa 70 as lyrical terms changed from love to social issues. He also formed the Kalakuta Republic, which was a recording studio and a home for many people connected to the band, which he later declared independent from the Nigerian state. Fela also set up a nightclub in the Empire Hotel, which was located in Surulere, Lagos, and he called it the Afro Spot. In the later years, he renamed it the African Shrine, where he performed regularly and officiated at personalized Yoruba traditional ceremonies in honor of his native ancestral faith. He changed his name to Anikulapo, meaning he who carries death in his pouch, with the interpretation, "I will be the master of my own destiny and will decide when it's time for death to take me." He stopped using the hyphenated surname Ransome because he considered it a slave name. His music became so popular among the Nigerian public and Africans in general, so he decided to sing in Pidgin English so that individuals all over Africa could enjoy his music, since the local languages they speak are diverse and numerous. As popular as Fela's music had become in Nigeria and elsewhere, it was unpopular with the ruling government and raids on the Kalakuta Republic were frequent. On April 30th, the Nigerian police raided Fela's house looking for weed. In the Nigerian constitution, possession of cannabis is punishable by up to 10 years in jail and cultivation by death. Failing to find any, they raided again for the second time. This time, they tried to plant a joint on Fela, but he managed to grab it and swallow it. He was then taken into custody at the Alagbon Close Police Headquarters and was placed in a communal cell, which the prisoners jokingly called Kalakuta Republic. The word Kalakuta is from Swahili language which means rascal. Fela was kept in the cell for 3 days, while the police waited for evidence to drop in his slope bucket. But unfortunately, his cellmate came up with an idea to switch physics, and Fela was pronounced innocent. After his release, Fela renamed his house the Kalakuta Republic, and he told stories about his experience at the Alagbo prison.
Because, my brothers, what is happening in Nigerian prisons is nothing short of Nazism. What they were doing in the concentration camps in Germany in 1940. I saw it with my eyes. They were flogging boys, 8 in the morning, 24 strokes. They put sand on the body before they flog them. And this is not from court order. This is just warders enjoyment. When boys just come from awaiting trial, they bring them from prison, about 50, 60 of them, will pack them for one small room. Then they will say maybe they beat them. They started to beat them first because they come from prison. And everything is so nasty there, man.
Fela went ahead to release 2 albums, Alagbon Close, which was released in 1974, and Expensive Sheets, which was released in 1975. One of his catchy lyrics from his album was, "My shit's na exhibit, it was not lost though." The album Expensive Shit tells the stories of how the Nigerian police tried to frame him for possessing weed in May 1974. In 1977, Fela and his band released an album called Zombie, which heavily criticized the Nigerian soldiers, and he used the zombie metaphor to describe the Nigerian military method. The album was a massive success in Nigeria and other African countries, partly because it spoke about the similarities of the military regimes that were taking place in most African countries at that time. Well, this infuriated the Nigerian government, who then decided to raid the Kalakuta Republic with 1,000 soldiers. During the raid, Fela was badly beaten, and dozens of residents in the commune were also beaten and raped. His mother, Mrs Olikoye Ransome, also received the brunt of the beatings and was thrown out of a second-floor window, where she sustained severe injuries. But unfortunately, she died in the hospital a year later. The commune was then burned down, including Fela's cars, instruments, and master tapes. In response to this assault, Fela decided to deliver his late mother's coffin to the Dodan barracks in Lagos, and he wrote 2 songs, Coffin for Head of State and Unknown Soldiers, referencing to the inquiry that claimed that an unknown soldier had destroyed his commune. On the 20th of February 1978, Fela married 27 women in a traditional Yoruba wedding ceremony in Lagos. The reason for this act was to demonstrate his belief in traditional African customs and values, and to protect his wives from the authorities' false claims that he was kidnapping women. Many of the women he married were dancers, composers, and singers with whom he worked with. Later on, he adopted the rotational system of maintaining 12 simultaneous wives. That same year, Fela headlined 2 concerts in Ghana and Germany. First concert was in Accra, Ghana, in which rioting broke out when the song Zombie was played. This caused Fela to be banned from entering Ghana by the orders of General Ignatius Kutu Achempong, who fears that it will stir up political unrest. The second concert was at the Berlin Jazz Festival, which afterwards, most of Fela's musicians resigned, including the band leader, Tony Allen, due to rumors that he planned to use all the profits to fund his presidential campaign. In 1979, Fela formed his political party, which was called Movement of the People, and the slogan, Clean up the society like a mop. But unfortunately, the party became inactive due to his confrontations with the government of the day. After the party was shut down, Fela criticized the Nigerian government and also released so many songs and albums, including Vagabonds in Power, Authority Stealing, and International Thief Thief. In December, Fela was charged with taking part in an armed robbery in Ikeja, Lagos. The charge was widely unreasonable, and Fela's lawyers get it dismissed. But not before that, Fela was beaten by the Nigerian police so severely that years later, he said that of all the times he was beaten, that was the only occasion he feared for his life. In 1983, Fela nominated himself for president in the Nigeria's first election, which hasn't been held in decades, but his candidature was refused. At this time, Fela created a new band called Egypt 80, which reflected the view that Egyptian civilization, knowledge and religious system are African and must be claimed as such. He stated in an interview that, I have to make Africans aware of the fact that Egyptian civilization belongs to the African, so that was the reason why I changed the name of my band to Egypt 80. On the 4th of September 1984, Fela and his band was about to board a plane from Lagos to New York to start his tour of the US, but unfortunately, he was arrested on charges of currency smuggling. With the hope of Fela joining them soon, the band and musicians decided to board the plane, believing that Fela would be allowed to follow up on a later flight. But instead, Fela was held on a pending trial. While in court, Fela explained he declared the £1,600 found on him on a custom declaration form, but to widespread disbelief, the police said the form was missing. Some of the custom officials who offered to testify that Fela was telling the truth were held in detention and were unable to appear in court. Fela was sentenced to 5 years in prison. First, he was held at the Kirikiri Maximum Prison in Lagos, then was moved away to the Maiduguri prison in the northern part of Nigeria. After spending 20 months in jail, Fela regained freedom His release follows up with a press statement by the judge who was at the 1984 trial. He stated that he had been pressured by the regime into giving Fela an unfairly long sentence. The judge visited Fela while he was in prison to apologize. Upon his release, Fela divorced 12 of his wives, stating that marriage brings jealousy and selfishness since his wives would regularly compete for superiority. In 1987, Fela was invited to visit Burkina Faso by his revolutionary president Thomas Sankara, a longtime fan of Fela's music. But on October 15th that same year, Sankara was assassinated. After hearing of the assassination of Sankara, Fela released a song in his honor titled Underground System. Fela and his band regularly performed mainly at the shrine, and in the 1990s, he stopped releasing albums. Rumors also speculated that he was suffering from an illness for which he was refusing treatment. However, there had been no confirmed statement from Fela about the speculations. In June 1997, ill health forced him to cancel his European tour, and on the 2nd of August that same year, Fela was pronounced dead. His brother, Mr Olikoye Ransome-Kuti, who was already a prominent AIDS activist and former Minister of Health, announced that Fela had died on the previous day from heart failure due to complications with AIDS, but Fela's wife maintained that he did not die of the disease. Fela has always been remembered not only as a pioneer of Afrobeat, but also as an influential figure who voiced his opinion on matters that affected the nation through music. Since 1998, the Felabration Festival is held each year at the New African Shrine in honor of late Fela Anikulapo Kuti. Thank you for watching. Please do well to subscribe.